A lovely day to you. Welcome. This is the Daily Headline Newspaper Update. I am Kayode Sonny, and with me today I have Daily Independent, Daily Trust, the Punch newspaper, Vanguard, and the Guardian newspapers with me. And starting off from the front page of the Punch newspaper for today, on page 2, the big story: fuel scarcity looms as depots raise petrol price to 720 naira per litre, with riders. Filling stations raise petrol price as depots now sell 720 naira per litre, says Ipman. NNPC officials storm Lagos depots, ask marketers to prioritize Abuja. On page 8, we're seeing this one: poverty alleviation. Court orders Buhari's minister to explain 729 billion naira disbursement. And also on page 32, we're saying budget. Federal government releases 1.2 trillion naira for capital projects. On page 9, ECOWAS, Senegal, Togo president to woo Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. On page 8, varsities boil again as federal government assumed workers protest Tuesday. On page 5, mother, daughter killed in Ogun gas explosion to hospitalized. On page 31, flooding. Federal government activates state emergency centers. Governor's order evacuation. And moving on to the Vanguard newspaper for today, the big story here on page 34: brewing industry choking over high cost of raw materials, with riders' expenses rise 113% to 188 billion naira. Importation alternatives stifled by high exchange rate. Top brewers borrow 812 billion naira to survive. Loan repayment cost rises 191%. Losses escalate by 1,034%. On page 10, court orders ex-minister to account for 729 billion naira. On page 6, kidnapped journalists. Police comb forest as NGJ demands release. Also, on the front page of the Guardian Vanguard newspaper, we're saying insecurity. Tinubu tasks ECOWAS member states on financial commitments, and that's on page 8. On page 5, why CBN insists on another recapitalization, Cardoso. And moving on to Daily Independent, the big story here: federal government lists 36 state-owned institutions qualified for student loan. Another story here: Sano, NASU commence protest tomorrow ahead of national strike. And also this one: court orders ex-minister to account for 729 billion naira poverty alleviation fund. And another one on page 6, 2027, Atiku Obi Kwankwaso asked to unite, rescue Nigeria from APC. On page 29, NDLEA smashes cocaine syndicate. NABS couple recovers 2.1 billion naira drug. On page 6, aviation security experts disagree over empowering AFSEC to bear arms. On page 7, Tinubu re-elected ECOWAS chairman, 6 funding for standby force. On page 7, again, Atiku raises the alarm over escalating insecurity. Also this one right here on page 7, Yoruba elders reject agitation for Yoruba nation. And this one also, why tomato prices are on fire. Farmers, stakeholders, with rider, federal government should open borders, subsidize fertilizers. That's coming from MBF Northern Youth. And moving on to some other stories right here on the front page of the Daily Trust. The big story here: why fuel queues persist, spread by marketers, with rider pump price hits 800 naira in Kano, others black market sell at over 1,000 naira. Another one right here on page 10, Ruto faced Kenyan youths in rare X-Space meeting. On page 41, federal government exempts Gencos, Discos, others from withholding tax. On page 5, Tinubu re-elected as chairman of ECOWAS. And this one also: report on Samoa agreement, our position. And moving on to the Guardian newspaper for today, on page 6, the big story here: revenue expenditure mismatch. States may sack 600,000 employees to implement minimum wage. And another story here: NDLEA arrests couple, recovers 2.1 billion naira worth of drugs in Lagos raid. And that's on the Metro page on page 9. On page 6, ECOWAS, Tinubu begins new mandate, tasked to return breakaway states. On page 5, student loan, 115 state-owned institutions yet to submit enrollees data. On page 3, ICPC intercepts 10 billion naira of COVID-19 fund in MDA account, 100 million naira in personal account. On page 5, NLC insists on 250,000 naira vows to reject federal government's 62,000 naira minimum wage. On page 3, petrol scarcity lingers in Abuja, queues resurface in state. On page 4, concerns, as socio-economic pressure heightens suicide missions among youth. And those are all the headlines from the newspapers for today. I want to say thank you for tuning in for today, and please don't forget to send in your reaction or comments in the question and answer box below this post. I am Kayode Sonny. See you next time.